Hello, and welcome to Workshop Wednesday. Where do we get started? Today is actually Balloons Around the World Day. I know if hot air balloons are your thing, you're probably already out there not watching the workshop live, but that's okay. That's why we have them as replays, so hopefully you enjoy yourself. We're going to talk about, in our What's New section, remember every week we switch to a different topic, and this week's topic is about what's new. It's the changes that came out. And in this case, the updates and features that were released in September of 2018, so just last month, in the last 30 days or so, get y'all caught up. Before we continue, of course, introductions. My name is Chris Mercer. I do go by Mercer. I'm the co-founder here at measurementmarketing.io, and you can see our content on such platforms as Digital Marketer, Conversion Excel, Social Media Examiner, Seriously Simple Marketing, and others around the web. We will cover the 5 pillars of measurement marketing. We like to do this each and every time because it's important to put these into context, especially as you try to improve your own measurement marketing skills. Make sure, number one, that you are planning. It's what questions are you asking? What data are you going to need to get those answers? What are you going to do with those answers when you actually get them? Then there's the building, where you're using tools like Tag Manager and Google Analytics, both of which actually had a little bit of updates coming through. We'll talk about in just a moment. Then the reporting, where Data Studio, where spreadsheets comes along. Data Studio had some interesting updates we're going to talk about. And then forecasting and optimizing. That's where you actually start to predict what's going to happen in your near future, and then optimize, where we're actually going to talk about optimize because that platform had some interesting changes as well. So, with these workshops, just remember we cover a lot of different things, especially if you're just starting out. You may not use all of these tools, or just some of them you just may not be ready for. So just know that it's a thing. And at the very, very least, just grab one idea, one thing that you can practice, one new feature you can kind of go, ooh, that's interesting. Let me go take a look at what that says. Practice it. Then you come back, watch the replays, and then take your next thing. That's why we have these workshops here. All right, without further ado, what's new? Updates and features released in September of 2018. So as always, we're just going to dive right into it. First and foremost, I'm going to start with one that we don't really talk about a ton. We do, of course, have workshops in the Measurement Marketing Academy that cover how to use Optimize, and whether you're a beginner, just have a little more experience, or just using it more for strategy stuff. But they don't update this constantly. It's updated. It's great. It's awesome. Don't get me wrong. This is a fantastic tool. But this is a really large update that they added. And so I'm going to show you where this is in Optimize here. So when you come into Optimize, the biggest thing that I noticed right away that was different was this word experience. It used to be experiments, which I know sounds close, but it's experience now. So you get to create an experience. Now, why do they call it this? Because of one very important feature. Before, it used to be A/B test, multivariate redirect, right, where you're switching URLs. This is the one you can use their built-in editor for. Great options on both things. Now you have personalization. So personalization, and we're not going to get into the nitty gritty of how to do this here. I just want to make sure that you know that this was there now. But what personalization is it kind of works. One thing that Optimize is really good at is targeting. I think it's fantastic. It's probably its competitive advantage. And they have this built-in editor, and so you could create an A/B test, go in, open up the editor, change a headline, and say like, other residents in Texas are choosing this, or other residents in California are choosing this. And you could kind of set up a split test that might personalize stuff based on where people live or whatever, right? Whatever signals are in existence. Well, they've kind of done that same thing with personalization. They've taken that same engine. The difference is personalization is not a split test. It can run forever. So you could use something like the Google Tag Manager data layer, for example, to identify if a user is logged in or not. And then you could do personalization for users that are logged in. It might say, welcome back or something. Or maybe, again, by state, or there are plugins that put in the weather, and you might change the image of the weather or something if it's a rainy image or whatever. Like, the mind boggles at what the possibilities are. First, you might test to see if you actually get a bump on that personalization, so you have proof. Then this is just something that runs in the background and automatically personalizes it. It's not a variation. It's not seeing which one's better, the control or the personalized feature. It is actually a tool that will start to personalize your site, your users, for your site, right? So based on your experiments that you've done. So it's almost like it's becoming more and more of this optimize tool, right? Like, I love the name now. It's starting to really come into play. They're not saying this is just about split testing. They're starting to pull this tool into other areas, which I think is really interesting. So now it becomes, yes, you can do split testing, which is this stuff up here, but then you can also use it as a personalization tool where it just sort of runs forever. The thing runs forever and personalizes based on however you told it to do that. So we will definitely be doing a workshop on this in the very near future under personalization, but really cool that they came out with that. Now, That actually segues me into Google Analytics. So I want to just show you Google Analytics. So one thing that they've done, and I'm just going to go into a report here to pull up a segment, is they have now added a new dimension in Google Analytics. So we're going to go in here, and it actually relates to, let's see here, we're going to go into new segment. There we go. We're going to create a new segment here, go into conditions, and this one, so this new segment is called Experiment ID with Variant. It's this middle one right here, Experiment ID with Variant. So what this does is this is Optimize. This is actually coming from Optimize, kind of why we have this segue here. And Optimize now pushes that information into Google Analytics. So now instead of just like the experiment ID or the name or whatever, you now have the ID with the variant. So it says like, oh, it was this experiment variant 1 or this experiment variant 2 or this experiment variant 3. So now you can really slice and dice. Maybe if you've got 360, you're building segments and audiences out of it. Like there's lots of cool things you can do with this. So just know that now you have, assuming you're using Optimize, right? Optimize to actually create a split test. That information that automatically came into the experiment section anyway, right? So we're in behavior, goes into experiments down here. That information automatically came in with experiments, but now you have this additional dimension that you can slice and dice from, which is experiment ID with variants. So two really kind of cool things. And that was one of the biggest things that came out with Google Analytics in terms of changes. The other one was a little more cosmetic, but still interesting. So up here, you can now go to the marketing platform home, and you have access from everything that you have access to with Tag Manager, with Optimize, with Data Studio, all sort of connected, surveys if you use surveys. So all of that is now sort of at your fingertips. So they're really starting, you can tell now that this platform concept is starting to take fruition. It's moving another step forward where instead of just like, oh, I'm using analytics, that's a separate thing, and Optimize is a separate thing. The idea is that it's Google Marketing Platform, and you're using Google Marketing, which just so happens to contain this analytics thing and this split testing thing, this optimized thing, and this Data Studio thing for dashboards. So, everything's sort of being pulled under this umbrella. So a little more of a cosmetic change, but still a very important one because it gives you a clue as to that continued direction of how Google's combining all of these. I think that's really useful. One of the other bigger changes that came through was in Tag Manager this past month. So if we jump in the Tag Manager, where you're going to find this change specifically relates to variables, and it actually relates to any variable. So if you pull up a variable, let's pull up, like pretending you're doing a URL variable or whatever it is, doesn't matter. You now have this option of format variable here. So if you click on this, and you can go back and you can adjust your current variables because they will all have this, though they will obviously not have any settings yet. But when you do this, this answers the question of like, sometimes you had to create like a custom JavaScript variable that pushed everything down in a lowercase or formatted in a certain way. This is something that I really, really love that the Tag Manager team does, is they are constantly trying to make this thing easier for people to use, and for marketers to use. And so in this case, format value. So now I can say, okay, I'm going to grab, let's say I'm going to do this as a test. So I'm going to grab a query parameter that's called test in the URL. And then what I want it to do is whatever that value is, I want it to switch everything to lowercase, right? So now it will return back with everything lowercase or not, or uppercase. Or I can, if there is no value there, undefined or null, I can replace it with something else. So, nothing here might respond back, or completely gone, right? Whatever I wanted to do, it would respond back if it was this value or that value. And then if it's a variable that returns true or false, I could do the same thing. So instead of saying true, say yes. And instead of saying false, say no, right? And so you start to really change the values. It's like it gives Tag Manager the ability to think a little bit more, to be able to manipulate the variables a little bit more and put them into a useful format for you, so that you're not having to worry about any of that stuff when you're passing the variables around. So for those of you that have thought about, man, I wish there was a way to push everything lowercase or uppercase, I think that'll be one of the biggest features for sure. And then sometimes with this whole null or undefined, it's more useful to have something a little more not so generic, and so you can rename that stuff there as well. So it's a really cool option, format values. And again, it's everywhere. So if you come in here, I just could create another random variable. I can do a cookie variable. There's format value for the cookie variables. If I wanted to do even something like a regex table, that I'm setting up here, come through here and do a regex table, right? I can do a format value, format the value of that's returned in the regex table. So there's all sorts of variables that you can use this for. Absolutely worth playing around and thinking through it if you need it, right? You may not need to push everything lowercase, but it's good to do something that's consistent when your data is back there, especially with tools like analytics, which are case sensitive. So if it's like capital F Facebook is going to be a different thing than lowercase Facebook, and that's another way to sort of make sure that everything's being squashed down into its lowercase format or uppercase or whatever you want to do, and along with everything else that you can format back there. So that was the biggest thing I think with Tag Manager this past month to make you aware of. And then Data Studio had a couple of updates. I'm just going to run through these here in the new features section where they had them. This hasn't really affected us at all. We haven't really needed this, but it's good to know that it's there because I didn't really know it wasn't there. I guess one big thing is that it's no longer in beta. It's officially out of beta, so you should have access to it no matter where you are in the world. Ideally, you got access to Data Studio now, so that could be affecting some of you that haven't had it. So at least try it out if you haven't had a chance to get into it. So it might be there for you. And then there's the literal negative number. So now you can do a calculated field, and you can like in this example, multiply it by a -1 to switch whatever the metric is to a negative number. Maybe you might need to do that for some of your calculated fields. Those that are correcting or are collecting that. This was really nothing. This was just that cosmetic update that was available in analytics. You can access now your Data Studio reports from analytics. And then this one is interesting. So this is the extracted data where the way that Data Studio works is it hooks into your data source, whatever that is. And then when you have your data source and you pull change your dates or whatever to pull a new report, well, it's recalculating everything and it's building everything, which is why it has that little delay in processing time. So the idea here is you can extract data, which means you hook it to your data source. And essentially what you do is you then pull a snapshot of the data and you save it. So now it's almost like it's made a copy of that data source, and now it's static. So it doesn't move around. The numbers aren't going to change. It's not going to update real time or any of that sort of stuff. It's just a static snapshot of the data. But if your data is not changing all the time, then that would be okay. Then if you did need to update that data source, you have to manually go in and do it again. So the pros of this feature is that it's faster, right? When you're building reports, especially if you're dealing with a lot of data, and the limits really are pretty good. It's like 100 megabytes of data. That's a lot of data coming through there. So that's an extracted data source. But again, the cons are when you change or update that data source, you then need to go back in here and you have to update it manually because it's not going to do it on its own. If you don't extract the data, then it is updated manually on its own as you refresh stuff. So it's a lot easier to do that. But again, something to make you aware of, and that's what these particular workshops. These What New workshops. Again, we do one of these every single month, and it's to keep you caught up on the changes in these different platforms so that you're aware of something. Doesn't mean you're going to use it. Doesn't mean you necessarily go and start using it. Just know that it's a thing because some of you went just, wow, okay, I can do calculated fields with negative numbers. Awesome. I'm going to go, that solves a problem for me. And others, like I said, in our case, we've never needed to do that. But it's good to know that we can. Finally, Facebook analytics, and sadly, I don't have anything to report on Facebook analytics. They didn't really make a ton of changes. They did some cosmetic stuff last month. We talked about that on last month's What's New workshop in Workshop Wednesday, but nothing else that have really, really been interesting happening back there, which sometimes is just the lull before the storm. So we're going to see kind of what happens there. They are continuing to update it, and they did some cosmetic changes for more of a user experience stuff last month, but nothing really this month in terms of new features that we have seen that happened in September of 2018 at least. So that brings us to an end of the major updates with all the different platforms that are going on. What was your one thing? Hopefully you got at least one, if not others. But again, if you start to get a little overwhelmed with all this stuff like calculated fields and Data Studio, I don't even know how to use Data Studio. Don't worry about it. Just know that it's a thing. Tag Manager and formatting variables. And, you're like, wow, why do I want to format the value of, I don't even know what a first-party cookie variable is yet. That's okay. It doesn't matter. Just know that it's a thing. Go back, practice your skills as a measurement marketer, practice these tools from a measurement marketing perspective, and bit by bit by bit, they become a lot easier to use. And then just, again, use these as, oh, cool, I didn't know that was a thing, but I'm glad I do now, right? Because you never know. Something, a new feature or release might come over that is just perfect for you. And of course, if that's the case, then obviously go forth and practice and play around with it. Now, if you need a better way to know your numbers and you're not yet a member, please join Measurement Marketing Academy. It is perfect for those of you who are part of a team. You're trying to improve the company's measurement marketing skills. You're maybe working for an agency, even a small team within a company doing this for your company or for others as clients that you might have. Check out this program. It is a monthly subscription. But measure.tips/start will give you all the details on it. There is an absolute massive amount of support. It's not for everybody, for sure, because it is so highly focused on support and helping you out. So there's a bit of investment back there, but take a look at it. It might be something worth pursuing at this point in time. If we can certainly help you, we would love to do that. And again, I cannot emphasize the support enough. One of those, in fact, is the office hours. So, of course, if you're already an Academy member watching this, every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, we have the office hours member Q&A. So that's for our Academy office hours member Q&A. As if you are an Academy member, just make sure you've checked your email. So we send you those links on Tuesdays. You get your link for the call. You can also go to the Facebook group where you will see it posted, and you can go to the Academy itself. In the Academy, there is a section now for office hours, and you'll click on that. And it shows you your link as well, so you can grab the link. They change every week, but that's why we want to make sure the Academy members have access to that. And we've had some really great calls back there. So some that are beginner questions, and people are sort of starting out with like, how should I set this goal up? And then there's others that get really in depth on API stuff and what the latest and greatest things are that some people are doing. So there's a wide variety of individuals out there that are in the Academy. Everyone's coming together to sort of help everybody else out. There are no stupid questions at all. So please, if you're an Academy member, take advantage of that members Q&A. It's literally like having a bunch of consultants right there, a fresh pair of eyes to look at your stuff, help you get unstuck and on the way. So take advantage of that. Again, it is just one of the many support options that we have in the Measurement Marketing Academy. So if you're not a member, take a look at that. All right. So that's it. Next week's topic switches now to getting started. So again, every month we cover different topics and one each week. And then next week's is the beginners. So getting started. If you're just getting started with this stuff, you're going to love next week's topic, tracking YouTube videos on your site. So if you've ever embedded a YouTube video from your channel or even somebody else's technically, and you've wanted to track kind of how that's performing on your site, you can do that with Tag Manager. And so we're going to come at that from a beginner's perspective and show you as a beginning Tag Manager person how you can actually do that and get the information into something like Google Analytics, maybe even Facebook we can talk about. So you can do it for like retargeting audiences. How cool is that? So yeah, getting started. It'd be perfect if you're a beginner. Just getting started with that. That will be next week's Workshop Wednesday topic. So look forward to seeing you there. Speaking of, if you are not yet on the Workshop Wednesday list and you want to be notified of these topics and stay up to date and see what's going on, also have access to the backend members area where you can have access to the Workshop Wednesday replay itself. Just go to Workshop Wednesday. Want to join that? Measure.tips/WW will get you there. So measure.tips/WW, and that's completely free. So there is no cost to join that. We definitely love having you guys back there, and any help that we can give you, again, with once a week workshops, it's awesome. We do take these workshops, we edit them down, and we make them into what we call the student edition workshops. We put them in the workshop library, and that we keep for Academy members. So if you ever need to reference like an older workshop, they're not available for Workshop Wednesday people, but for every week, if you're wanting to stay up to date, like we want to make sure this information's out there. So do your best to join that. Again, completely free as a service of measuremarketing.io. All right, that's it. We'll go ahead and close it here. Thank you so much. This has been What's New, updates and features released in September of 2018. Thanks again for joining this workshop, and we will see you on the next one.